So thank everyone for coming this morning. Good morning again. May God add his richest blessings to this meeting. I'm Pastor Gil Monrose. I am the Director of Faith-Based and Clergy Initiative for the Brooklyn Borough President, and also with the God Squad. And we're here to talk around public safety for Labor Day weekend, but also beyond Labor Day weekend. And so we just wanted to make sure that we are all collectively is speaking the same language, and we know exactly how each organization roles, how we're moving this weekend, but also how we're dealing with the violence that we see in our city every single day. Last night, even in the 6-7, we had a shooting, even this morning as well, of an older woman who was shot in her back, leaving a salon parlor, right? So we see this happening over and over again. This week also too, in the Bronx, a father and son both had guns and fired some rounds at the police officer. So it's a dangerous time for all of us on the ground. But also too, it's also an exciting time because we see that even in the crisis management system, a lot of anti-groups and anti-violence groups and organizations have been really doing some positive work with young people over the summer, hiring, arts programs, skating, you just name it. There are so many positive things that is going on in our communities. And so we know for sure in this room, we can highlight a list of things that we're doing. So today is a conversation around just making sure that we're set for Labor Day and Juve weekend. When we say Labor Day and Juve weekend, we know that officially we don't have any events, but it's a celebration of Caribbean culture and history. So we have Chief Kemper. Could you maybe just give us some opening remarks as to how we're looking for this weekend, your thoughts around the partnership with everyone in the room, and we can go from there. So when we go to the conversation, if you're speaking, you will then introduce yourself at that time. But if we start this right now, we'll be here until tonight, okay? So we just want to be mindful of the time. Go right ahead.
So good morning, everyone. Thank you, Pastor. Very, very happy to be here. I'm the commanding officer of Patrol Borough Brooklyn South. Some of you I know in this room, some of you that I don't, but I think meetings like this are good. They're very important that we're working together, we're speaking, transparency, and that's how we're going to have success. Speaking of this upcoming weekend, Labor Day, the police department will be providing a larger than usual police presence in the streets, some areas more than others. We'll certainly be working throughout the weekend. Our goal is to ensure everyone has an enjoyable weekend, but a safe weekend as well. How we're going to go about that, a large part of how we're going to achieve that goal is working with our community partners. And what do I mean by working with our community partners? Working with the elected officials, our clergy, Pastor Monroe's working with him and his team, the God Squad, and working with WIADCA, the event organizer. There are some events going on. There's events behind the Brooklyn Museum. We're aware of them. There will be a police presence there. And that's it. I mean, the name of the game is safety. So you're going to see uniformed police 24/7 through the weekend. And preventing gun violence is certainly of utmost importance. So, I mean, depending on how the pastor wants to move forward, if there are any questions that want to come my way, I'll certainly answer them if I can. If I can't, I'll get you the answer. But again, I just want to assure everyone in the community that the police department will be prepared and ready to go for the weekend. And to everyone in this room, thank you so much for this partnership. It's important. It's important for everyone, so thank you.
Thank you so much for that, Chief. Also, let me just make note that, many years ago when there were shooting involved around our cultural heritage, I think even from the days of Mayor Bloomberg, who came to visit with me to talk about the safety around Carnival and Juve, there were talks about cancellation. And then with the Borough President, we had looked at bringing together a team of individuals from the cultural side. Ms. Rennie's here from Juvencity International. We have Rhea Smith from WIADCA. to talk about how do we create a collective around making sure that, number one, the culture is not known as a violent culture, and that the weekend, you can't cancel the Juve weekend in the sense of the fact that it's a celebration, it's a culture. Just like you can't cancel St. Patrick weekend or Memorial Day weekend, we're looking at the same ideas. And so about 4 or 5 years ago, I think it's about 5 years ago, we pulled together from the mayor's office, Mayor Bill de Blasio, and the borough president took the lead in making sure that there was a collective response. We had Mr. Ray Martin, who was part of the team, still is. We had Detective Roxanne Joseph as well, who was kind of making sure that locally we were moving in the right direction. And then, of course, Eric Adams, who couldn't be here today from the mayor's office, pulled together the Cure Violence team. We had GMAC in the area. We have anti-violence group, East Flatbush Village, Eric Waterman. We have Kamara Jackson, Ms. Kamara Jackson from Elite Learners. We have Reverend Terry Lee with Immigrants Responding to Crisis, along with clergy in the different areas who were, number one, making visits, but also making sure that, again, that we could have a safe weekend. And historically speaking, it has been a safe weekend. I don't know if everyone realized that. We realize that, correct, right? That it has been a safe weekend when you look at what was happening from before. Kudos to the police department who really put the resources in the right area to get that done. So again, this collaborative effort is really important for us. The borough president, when he comes, wanted to hear from some youth voices. So we have some young people who are here who've been doing work with us throughout the summer, so that he can also hear from them as to what is some of the things that we can continue to do to reduce the violence that we have in our city. So thank you so much. So I'm going to go to Ms. Kamara Jackson just to talk about the approach of the crisis management system, if you would.
Sure. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for coming. This is important. It's necessary. Proper preparation prevents poor performance. So we must prepare as a collective and make sure that we're in partnership as partners on the ground this Labor Day weekend and every other weekend. One of the things I would suggest is that we have full deployment, right? So we're asking for all of our credible messengers, our violence interrupters, our outreach workers, to be on the ground, full deployment. We know the NYPD presence is going to be heavy, but we have to also have a heavy presence. Getting into distribution of PPE, we have to have it on us. It should be in the mobile trauma units. The PPE should be accessible. There are going to be parties that are going to take place. We know that, right? So how do we make sure that we are able to make sure that the police does not have to intervene, but we can intervene, and we can make sure that we can get to the crevices and the small blocks and the corners ahead of time. So this is what we do. We do it every year. We do it well. And I just think that we, from today on, just start to prepare the strategies and talk to one another. One of the things I will say is that a lot of the CMS organizations activated all summer, as Pastor Monroe said. We have to continue to do that, right? So the events that we have now leading up to after Labor Day weekend, let's make sure that they end safely. Let's make sure that we know that if there's any parties happening, that we are at those parties and at those locations, especially if they're not being thrown by one of the organizations. Mobile trauma units are very important Labor Day weekend. We must circle. So as we are circling, we are also on feet, but the units have to be accessible. I asked NYPD in advance to get a list of all the units that are going to be out on the street. So you know who the organizations are, you know what units they're driving, and you're able to allow us to get from destination to destination. So that's something that we can work on as a team. You know, the CMS model is really about curing and curbing violence. We have a lot of preventative programs. We have a lot of preventative methods. Let's use all of them. We're trained. We're violence interrupters. Our credible messengers are from the communities in which they're serving. They know who, what, where, when, and why. So this is a weekend that we rely heavily on our staff. We rely on each other as partners, and we keep communication open. I don't know if I forgot anything else. But, you know, I'm just excited to be here, excited to have the opportunity to work and lead. And, you know, elite learners will be in the 7-3 precinct and will be in the confines of the 7-1. So we're covering PLG and the entire Brownsville area.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for that. Ms. Rhea Smith, do you want to give us just an overview from the WIADCA standpoint?
Sure. The organization, well, morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. Nice to see everyone safe and sound here. The organization is definitely planning several events behind the Brooklyn Museum. We would have loved to have our beloved parade, but that is not able to take place. But with the participation of many of the city agencies and of course NYPD and all that collaboration, we're able to, the organization is able to produce several events behind the Brooklyn Museum starting Thursday, September 2nd, in the evening from, I think it's 7 p.m. to 12 a.m. Friday, September 3rd, starting at 7 p.m. to 2 a.m. Saturday, September 4th, there will be a virtual event. That's the only virtual event. Everything else is live. That starts at 11 a.m. for the Youth Fest. Then there is a Steel Pan Jamboree that starts at 7 p.m. Saturday night to 12 a.m. And then Monday, there is an event starting at 11 a.m. to 6 p.m. And these events are all collectively reflective of the culture, the costuming, the food, the cuisine, the music, and the entertainment.
Okay,
And
thank you.
tickets are available on Eventbrite and the website as well.
So all of the events are going to be behind the Brooklyn Museum,
All
just so
events are
everyone
behind
knows?
the Brooklyn Museum, nothing is taking place on the Parkway.
Okay, thank you so much. All right, so Ms. Rennie, do you have a few comments to give? I know that you did a responsible thing. You talked about Juve, you canceled the official festivities. You can have a few words, and then once the Borough President comes, he's going to open up to have that conversation or dialogue with everyone.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Yvette Rennie, the president of Juvencity International. First and foremost, I must thank the mayor's office, the Brooklyn Borough President office, the police department, and city council members who have worked closely with us over the past few years when we were in a negative narrative. And we were happy that we were able to come out of that negative narrative because of the people who have been behind us. Even the Lay Your Guns Down, GMAC, and I can name several people who have worked very closely with us. And I must say thank you, thank you, thank you. This year, from 2020, because of the situation that we were faced with, we have decided to cancel Juve again. In doing so, it was hard, but we felt it was the most responsible thing to do because at no time can we control several blocks of people. And we do not want to be responsible for anything happening to anybody. What we have decided to do, we did several workshops throughout the year. Our last workshop will be a historical tour where we will be leaving from the library, highlighting all the historical buildings along the route. The library, the arch, the zoo, the historical old house that they're renovating onto McDavis College, talking about Ebbsbury right through. And our end piece is our newly found, the African Burial Ground on Bedford Avenue and Church Avenue, and that's where we'll be ending. However, we are having young people will be doing that tour. So we felt it very important that our young people understand the buildings that are surrounding us and the buildings that we are hosting our culture events so it can be maintained. I say thank again to each and every one of you. We are in a positive narrative at this time in our history.
Thank you so much. Thank you for that. Thank you again, and we have some youth with us too as well, but we'll save them for the Borough President in terms of his comments, and they could respond to him directly. We have Detective Raxon Joseph, who have a wealth of information, culturally speaking, as well. I think that, Chief, you have a good folks in your office, including Detective Joseph. And then, again, we're hoping, again, to have, once the Borough President comes, that we have a conversation so that everyone can chime in for sure. So, Detective Joseph?
Thank you, Pastor Monroe. Just to piggyback off of what the chief said, I'm basically there at his right hand, basically, helping him. I'm guiding him along the way culturally. I can tell you that since he's been here, he's just been here about 2 weeks, and he's very receptive to the Caribbean culture. We've had many, many conversations about the cultural norms here, the expectations for the weekend, and what the community is going to be expecting. And we sat down on many, many, many meetings. And he's, like I said, he's very, very receptive. And up to this morning, he asked me, he's like, Rox, what's going to be the message? And, we went over the message is basically he understands, and the NYPD understand that this is a cultural time for us. The demographics of the cops that cover the Caribbean area and where Juve and Labor Day is really affected, most of the cops in these precincts actually represent the demographics of the area. So we too are celebrating our culture, and we really want our people to enjoy this time, because it's a really significant time for us. But we want them to do it safely. We want them to, do it reasonably and really to be safe. That's, like the chief said, that's our main goal, is safety. Our 4 parents work very, 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 very hard for us to be having the opportunity to celebrate this time. And so they will definitely be rolling in their grave if there's violence around the time that they've worked so hard to achieve. So that's really our message, for our people to really enjoy it and reminisce on what this time really means to our people. Thanks.
Thank you for that. Definitely, I just want to say that in the absence of Eric Cumberbatch, that he couldn't make it because of where he's coming from today. So just taking that the mayor's office is not present. The mayor's office, what's MOCJ again? The mayor's office of criminal justice, but Commissioner Perez is here, so you could say a few words on behalf of the commissioner's office.
I don't have to tell anyone here, from you, Pastor Monrose, to Chief Maggi, to Chief Kemper, how many conversations we've had in the last several weeks. So I commend you for how proactive you all have been in bringing us all together to make sure the left hand's talking to the right hand, so to speak, and that we're engaging communities, engaging our partners in the work, our violence interrupters. I also want to acknowledge Ray Martin from the Office of Nightlife, who has also been instrumental in bringing us all together. But again, to all our partners in this work, the violence interrupters, who are obviously key players and key allies, just want to again thank you all, and let's continue to work toward a safe weekend, while also acknowledging and respecting the culture and the importance of celebrating the Caribbean community this upcoming weekend. That's really all I have to say. And again, thank you, Pastor Monrose, for bringing us all together to sort of share our thoughts and our ideas in this morning. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you so much. It's now 10:30, and we're clicking down. Oh, okay. So Eric Cumberbatch wants to say a few words. So hopefully you can hear it on speakerphone. Let's see if we can get him on speakerphone. All right, you're live, sir. Go right ahead.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate you. Can we have a full house? Are people in the building? They can hear me?
Nah, just you and I. No one showed up.
No one showed up.
Full house.
Don't scare me, right?
No. Go right ahead. We're all here.
All right. Good morning, everyone. Peace. I apologize that I couldn't be there in person. I'm upstate in the mountains right now, and it was just too much fog to drive through. I tried to drive through about 7 a.m., but I had to turn back. It was a lot. But I want to thank everyone for being in the room. Thank you, Borough President Adams, for convening everyone and putting this meeting together for us to discuss important topics. I greatly appreciate it. And I just want to give quick historical words on what I've seen in working with Eric Adams. We started working together on crisis management system roughly around I would say 2012, 2013, at a convening that the New York Community Trust and the Citizens Crime Commission put together. And Eric, Kathy Wild, Richard Aborn, and others were part of that group, and really designing and thinking through how we can get to the spaces and place where we are today. So very influential in the historical buildings and just underpinning from the government end, along with several advocates. AT was at the table then, Anthony Newells was at the table then. There was a lot of people that were doing this, and I'm referencing the New York Community Trust convening. But we wouldn't be here today without his leadership and without a lot of the brilliance that he's definitely brought to this. So thank you very much, Eric, and I appreciate what you're doing. To give a quick overview of where we are in Brooklyn, we have 11 precincts that have CMS sites, the 6-0, the 6-7. We've added 3 new sites this fiscal year, the 6-9, 7-0, and 7-1. We have the remaining existing sites in the 7-3, 7-5, 7-7, 7-9, 8-1.
You can hear this?
And these are the precincts that primarily drive.
We will recap later.
Don't lie. I can't hear that. That microphone?
Yeah. Yeah.
For the right reasons, really driven by data and
Is that microphone working? Hold on.
No, the microphone is only for the camera.
results that we've seen.
Hold on.
Oh, okay, hold on. You tell him.
Hey, hold on. Eric. We can't hear you. We're not here going through the motions, brother. So you can give us a report later. We're going to rock and roll with who's in this room because we can't hear you, and it's not coming through clear, okay? Love you. Talk to you soon.
All right, thank you. From one Eric to the next. Eric was given a overview as to what the crisis management team was doing, but we got a good overview from the discussions today. So we had everyone talk from every department except our youth leaders within our community. There's a few. So if you want, you can lead the discussion. If you have any questions for anyone, if you want to hear from any sector, it's up to you as to where you want us to take you. We'll take you there.
Yeah, but let me pause for a moment because I think that we can't go through the motions. And I'm not going to interpret your pain, and don't let anyone interpret your pain. And don't sit in a room with anyone that's not hearing you and that you're not hearing them. And this was an indicator of that. You're sitting in a room straining your ears. In reality, you're not being heard and you're not hearing. That is why we're in this mess in the first place. We've become too accustomed to just going through the motion. And I am not going to watch bullets carving highways of death through our community and just do what we've always done. It's just not acceptable to me. And people need to be clear of your expectations and what's expected of them. That is how we're going to get out of this mess that we're in. We have, I think, amazing law enforcement folks here who are really committed to this work, and we have amazing youth leaders and on-the-ground folks who are just committed to this. And we just need to reach the point that we are willing to just put everything on the table, put everything on the ground, and say, how do we finally turn the corner in this, the violence that we're seeing and what we need to do. But we don't do it, trust me, if we're just saying, here's another meeting, here's another conversation where we're not really moving the needle. I just don't want to do that, and I'm not going to do that. And I just hope that you all have reached that point with me, that you're just not going to do things that we've always done the same way and get the same results. I just want to share that. So you could open it up.
Yeah, so if you wanted to get a feel from who's doing what, or however you want to take the conversation in terms of public safety, not only this weekend, but throughout the next couple of months, and what we did during the summer in terms of all the groups who are here, you're free if you want me to. Do you want to hear from some of the youth leaders?
Yes, okay. I would love to hear from the youth leaders.
So youth leaders who are here, who worked for the summer, you could talk about your experience. We got Khadijah, who is here on the table. We got, who else we have?
Miranda.
Oh, Miranda, and we have Martin as well. So who wants to go first?
Okay. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Yeah. So SYEP with God Squad was really, it was fun, and it was very, how will I put it? It was very impactful, if you get what I'm saying. We did a lot of community outreach. We gave out PPE. We were in a lot of affected neighborhoods, and even though we, it's an affected neighborhood, so we wanted to be safe, we still had to bring out the outreach, like give out PPE, help people with COVID, help people that are like distressed. We had basketball games where we had a lot of youths come out to play basketball, to watch, just to like decrease what was going on. Like people were affected mentally, psychologically, all through the summer. So we were there to help. And it was fun because we formed a bond, we formed a family while in SYEP. So it's definitely something I myself would do again. Thank you.
I could go next. Morning, everyone.
Good morning.
How's everyone doing today?
Thank you.
My name is Miranda, and I just want to tell you a little bit about myself and how I joined the 67th Precinct Clergy Council this summer. So I joined SYEP. I applied to SYEP in hopes of being assigned at a hospital because I want to be a doctor. And I said, if I'm not assigned at a hospital because I'm only 16, at least I'll be making money. And I was assigned with the 67th Precinct Clergy Council, and I didn't know what this organization was. And as I'm scrolling through the website, I see that, it's to help protect communities against gun violence. And this was not something I wanted to be put right in the middle of, because I had lost my brother to gun violence. And I never knew that there was people who were behind the scenes working on things like this. And to be put in that, experience again, where we might be exposed to, people and other families who might have lost their sons, their brothers, their family members to gun violence. It was difficult, challenging at first, but then, a couple weeks later, I realized that I could be out there stopping people's brothers, cousins, family members from getting shot or hurt or from doing the shooting. And that's what the 67th Precinct Clergy Council was for me. It was a place where I can, find a way to protect people against gun violence, protect my community, and stop people from just having that mentality. I mean, I can't stop the entire world, and I might not have been assigned to a hospital this summer, but I'm still helping people, and that's what I wanted to do in the end. So this has been a great summer for me.
I like that. Sorry for your loss. I was talking to a friend of mine who served with me in the police department, and I've known Darren for 30 years now. And we were sitting on the phone the other day, and he told me there was someone that was stabbed in the Bronx, and he shared with me. He says, Eric, I never said anything about it, but my brother was stabbed with an ice pick while and killed, and I just never knew the story, and I was standing behind D.A. Gonzalez, when he was at the podium speaking, and I don't know if many people know, D.A. Gonzalez lost his brother to violence. And all of us have these stories of, you know, who we have lost to violence, and we probably hold it inside and don't share it. But we like have this universal pain. And, you know, when you come forward and join the precinct council, the 67th precinct council, you know, you're just like, you know, you're turning the pain into purpose. And we're dismantling those walls of, you know, sometimes we look at the guys and ladies that are in uniform, and, you know, many of them have the same stories. And that commitment to dealing with this violence, not only stopping it today, but how do you prevent the feeders of the violence? How do we help not put people on the pathway of the violence? And, you know, I want to thank you for joining the council, and I'm pretty sure that it is, you know, it's teaching you of what happens behind the scene at the same time. You know, so I really thank you for that.
God Squad. I specifically work on the data analysis team. So we basically collect data and just to track our impact in the community. So we also made flyers that we distributed every Friday in different hot spots. Those flyers contain job opportunities and other programs such as the Flatbush Leadership Academy to get youth out of the district and help them learn something new, be part of something different, experience something different, so that they can learn something else instead of getting involved in gangs and going out in the streets and shooting at each other, stabbing at each other, and maybe find jobs and work there, earn money, and have new experiences. So yeah, that was really helpful. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. I'm interested to hear from both Dana and Eric that are here. You both on the ground, you lead organizations, you know, you've been talking about a lot of this stuff. So what are we doing wrong?
Eric Waterman, Executive Director of East Flatbush Village, Inc., a youth and community development organization with an intentional focus to prevent gun violence in our community. And thank you for that question. I don't know if it's something that's wrong per se, more than I think it's something that we have to be consistent with. Sometimes and oftentimes, and pardon it, but its reality is the politics becomes more of the challenge on the ground. When we are in spaces, it's because we have a relationship with a lot of the people on the ground. You know, I know there's gonna be coverage this weekend. We're gonna be working in the 6'3", 6'7", 6'9", 7'0", this particular weekend. But that's not because of this weekend. That's because we actually been doing that work for years in those precincts. Not because it was a precinct, because it was a neighborhood, it was a block, it was a grandma whose son, whose daughter, whose so and so forth, who might have engaged in gang activity or been a victim of gun violence or anything around violence. And so I think it's just a matter of being consistent, being consistently present. So that way when we do walk up on a party that's happening during Juve, or a small gathering that's happening in front of the building, or when we walk up with the precinct, because we work directly with the community affairs officers and have great relationships with them in all the precincts, that we're able to speak to who we are actually dealing with. Like, we realize, yeah, they might be rolling up or smoking right there, but they ain't really, this group ain't trying to start no trouble. They just hanging out here. This is their barbecue that they happen right in front of the building, you know? We did this last year. I think it was a great success in the sense that we flooded the area of the route for Juve. We went into different areas in the surrounding areas of the route, in particular hot spots, such as East 21st and so on. Everybody knows that, in 7-0. And we were seeing kids that were like our former students, for me in particular, and people that we just were engaged with throughout our regular lives or through the work that we did. But that wasn't because, again, that night, that was because of the consistent work that had been done throughout the years, just engaging them and being able to work with them. Some of the things that I think, again, I don't know if it's about doing things wrong. I think maybe what about the things that we're doing right? And the job training is a big deal. They make more money on the street. They don't really need jobs. They'll take the money off the street and be fine with that. The issue is we need to be able to train them for something that has beyond just that job, but being able to live beyond that's their circumstance, and training comes with that. This summer we did a lot of work with actually God Squad youth as well, so I got a chance to interact with them. We had our own 40 SYEP workers, but we've also promised from the state that we would also sit in a room with you about that we hadn't gotten those slots as yet for an additional extension. That's a big deal. When we're on the ground, we're telling people, giving them the paper, go on the link, sign up and register. That's important, and it's important because we are offering something to them. Come in there empty-handed and saying we got something better, because if you don't offer something, you're just spitting into the wind for the most part. To those that are challenged in so many different ways, we're bringing different resources. We're trying to bring mental health resources. We're trying to bring, again, job training. We're trying to bring food. We're in food deserts, so we're bringing food as a result of food disparities that's taking place. So it's a full wraparound service that's taking place on the ground. And the people who will tell you the most are the same people we're trying to assist. They tell us exactly what is actually needed. And jobs was a big deal, and we hadn't gotten those. So I think if there's anything we're doing wrong, we have to make sure that when we get something offered to us whether it be administratively or from, from government, that we are able to deliver, because it's our names on the line when we're out there on the ground, on the streets. And so that was my only thing, I think, was to take away of something that was impactful from a negative standpoint. But I think we're doing a lot of right things more than anything. We just have to be steadfast and consistent. And we've been doing that, and I know a lot of the people here at the table have been doing that, and I commend everybody who is doing that, and I appreciate you convening this.
And what's the job piece again? What happened?
So we met with Governor Cuomo at the time. He came down to Lenox Road Church.
Yes.
And he sat down with groups that are sitting here at the table. We offered exactly what our challenges were on the ground and what we needed to prevent gun violence when he was implementing the emergency. It was an emergency, state of emergency to impact gun violence. And so there was money coming behind that, but there was also supposed to be jobs.
Okay.
And so a lot of the agencies linked to that were not notified. Time passed. It was always kind of up in the air as to what was happening with it. So kids are registering, then they're getting called and said, hey, you don't fit whatever demographic, but there wasn't supposed to be one. It was supposed to be areas that would just impacted zip codes.
Right.
As opposed to it being maybe an income, A lot of the kids that's out there, they got two parents working hard, doing whatever, so they might not meet that requirement. But the challenge is still there.
Right.
And so I think it has to be looked at through a different lens. We can't just assume that everybody's worse off and making a choice or forced to that.
Right.
Some people are actually, that's just the life that they've been accustomed to, and there's been no other option. Or the voices have let them down. Everybody, every stage that they've been at, whether it's been school, whether it's been organizations like ours, whether it's been institutions and administrations, whether it be politically, have let them down in some way, shape, fashion, form directly to their life.
Right.
So we try to be that consistent voice to say, hey, we're not going to let you down. We're going to be there working with you. We're here with you. We're going to provide those resources. We hired them. A lot of the kids that we have in our program, we hired. We actually worked with them this summer to have them come up with plans and strategies to how best impact gun violence in the areas that are hot spots that they're coming from.
Right.
And so who best to have those conversations with than those that are currently and some formally living that life. So I think it's very vital and important. Funding for me as an organization is a big deal, but I know for many it's a challenge. And so to do that same work. So I just wanted to make sure I shared that on the ground from our perspective.
And that's a good point. And I think you're right. Consistency is so important. And, people have been betrayed so often that they've lost faith. And I think that when we create the criteria for who is eligible for things, we should not be creating from the top up. It should be from the bottom down. And you should have a role in saying, here are the people we are identifying that are at needs, and here's the criteria that they fit in. So I don't know if you read, but we have a new governor. You know, so we should get Governor Hochul in the room and let her know the commitments that were made. You know, we have a new governor, but this is not a new state. And so if commitments were made, we need to push them through. And so I know we're going to see her tomorrow at another event, and I'm going to, you know, revisit what was promised from the previous governor. And I'm glad you brought that to our attention.
Much appreciated.
I would,
Yes, Dana.
so I think that we also need to recognize that there's another stakeholder in this room that is never spoken about, which is the media. And so earlier we were talking about the narrative of Juve, or the narrative of the neighborhoods that we live, work in, and are serving. The media has an immense responsibility to do their due diligence, to be telling stories with accuracy, to be giving dignity to the people that they're telling the stories to really investigate around the work that's happening. Those fluff pieces around crisis management are nice, oh, they did this barbecue or whatever, but there's real strategy and hands-on work that's happening that are proven crime reduction strategies, proven crime reduction deployment initiatives that are happening. And until there's a validation culturally and socially across the city around the work that's happening, and that really has to be done by smart, intelligent storytelling. And that has to happen more than just when there's 5 people shot on Mother Gaston, you know, and showing up in the wake of people's trauma with cameras in people's faces. You know, that's not how we are going to turn the tide on the work that we're doing here, not only in the eyes of the general public that helps sway public perception and whatnot, but also in the ways that we as a collective work with each other. The NYPD has made strides in the last 8 years. Of course, we all know that there's way more to go. And that means having operation orders that legitimize the crisis management system, that fold them into their deployment efforts and thoughts, that move resources that are maybe NYPD controlled to being community controlled, right? So thinking about, why would we erect a light tower here when this might be used in a better way? Or how do we give permits to people that we normally wouldn't allow to have permits, because we know that if we let this block with these guys have a permit, that they'll promise that there won't be any violence today. So really reimagining how we storytell, how we report on incidents of violence, or the incidents that happen every single day that are not connected to violence. The beautifulness of our communities is crucially important, and I think that the media holds some responsibility as a stakeholder in this conversation. So I just wanted to add that. And I think that the second thing is, when talking about jobs or talking about money, one, there needs to be a way to build infrastructure, and you can't do that when the governor's office says, here's $72,000, I need you to launch a program next week, and it's for gun violence reduction for 4 weeks. That's not how you run programming. You need to have a commitment over a few years. You need to have steady flow of money. We have to be able to pay the kids that we say that are coming, so we can't wait on your timeline, right? The governor's office, everybody there is getting paid. Department of Labor is getting paid. The kids aren't getting their checks because the money's held up somewhere. So we need to have a constant flow of contracts that go from 3 to 5 years, and that might mean that we need to reevaluate who currently has those contracts, who are getting those reoccurring contracts for millions and millions of dollars and are not ever touching the people that need to be touched. So we really need to figure out how we're doing contracting and procurement in the city and the state. The city's the same way. Oh, here's $25,000 to do something over the summer, and then you'll get it in August. How do you expect these nonprofits to do that? So one is, how are we contracting out? Who is getting those contracts? And what are the barriers to get them, right? Even the Safe in the City grant for $1,000. I know tons of people on tons of blocks that I'm like, yo, you want to do this? Here's $1,200. You just got to fill out this form. That form is not something that they're going to fill out. We need to reduce the barriers of getting people money immediately to do the things that we know that they could do, which is keep blocks safe, right? Block by block. So how do we remove even with the summer youth employment, Do you know what the process is like for a 15-year-old to sign up for SYP? Your mother's W-2, your lease, your pay stub, the last time you used your WIC card, your last receipt, your birth certificate. Which 15-year-old is able to do that, right? And so we're losing a bunch of kids because of the barriers of bureaucracy. So longer contract periods, reimagining who can get those contracts. The best violence interrupters may not even be connected to a CMS site. They're not connected to organizations. They're on blocks. You saw, you came to Tapscott, right? Every single one of those people is a violence interrupter. So I would say that that's what we're doing wrong. We're not reimagining. We're not thinking about who can have access. And we're not holding the media accountable for how they're telling our stories. What are we inviting them to? Why are we doing press conferences where they're dehumanizing the people that we're supposed to be fighting for? So I would just, those would be my top two things. You and I have a conversation, so you know, to limit it to two is hard.
No, I didn't give a number to it. I was open-ended. So, a couple of things, because I think you raised some good points. And number one, I think it's imperative for the policymakers, again, not to make the policies top-down. And, you could have a PhD in Columbia, but you will have a GED on the streets. And so it's time for people who are on the ground to be part of the policy making so that it will get the results that we're looking for. Too many people are so theoretical, philosophical, and intellectual with their textbook ways of dealing with a real issue.
Yeah.
And what's on the ground is different from what you get inside the classroom. And so I think this is an opportune time to start looking at how do we reach the population we are looking for? How do we touch them? But at the same time, we have to professionalize and standardize what we're doing on the ground, because these are taxpayers' dollars. And I'm not pleased with some of my crisis management team. It can't be just that, I'm the city council person, you're my cousin, so go open up an operation and call it a crisis management team. And some of this stuff has to be standardized. What are our expectations? How successful are you? If you are a crisis management team and you're covering a couple of hotspots in your area, but shootings are still through the roof, and you still have a beautiful office somewhere, and you're getting paid some wild salary, that's not working for me. So I need to make sure I'm results oriented. How well are we doing? And the results doesn't mean only that shootings went down. Let me get clear on that, because it's not only how many home runs you hit, but how many home runs you prevented. And so some of this stuff can't be measured. But if the role is crisis management, if you show how many folks you're getting employed, if you show how many young people are engaged in your program, there are many ways to show that are we being productive in carrying out the assignment. And and I'm not sure if taxpayers' dollars are being used appropriately. Now, Senator Schumer is going to be allocating a large sum of money. President Biden is going to be allocating a large sum of money. There's a large sum of money that's going to come from the state. Let's get this right with the money.
Right.
And if we don't get it right with the money, we just wasted the money.
Right.
And we're right back where we started from. And I just don't want to be a part of it.
And that's why I think that it's important that we operationalize the partnership. And I use the word partnership in a not traditional way, because I understand the separateness of the CMS organization. I don't believe that information should be coming into the police department. I think that information should be flowing out of the police department to crisis management. We have this young man, we know he's committing all the robberies. We can't prove it, but we know he's committing the robberies. Camara, do you know this kid? He lives on this block. Can you go out and reach him? We need to be, and that then serves as checks and balances, where the CMS sites are making sure that your police officers are doing everyday good acts of policing to increase public safety and increase trust. And your police department is making sure that the crisis management system is effective and serving those individuals that we know we don't want to wait for them to get shot or for them to fire a weapon, right? How can you operationalize that partnership so that you do have that efficacy and checks and balances? and, declaring what it is, what are these outcomes, how do you measure them? But we know this works. You saw that it worked in the 7-3. You see that it's expanding the Brownsville Safety Alliance. We know what works. How do we build on it? And how do we institutionalize and operationalize it?
And that's so important, Dana, what you are saying, and to what all of you are saying. These are the many layers. And in the term that you use that I often say, we have to change the ecosystem of public safety. Historically, public safety has only been the police.
Correct.
And that ecosystem, we have never really redefined in America what is public safety and what's the role, what are all the feeders to this thing we call public safety. And we need to redefine that and apply it. And then there are two ways to be promoted in the police department. You're promoted through an examination or you're promoted through the detective bureau. What about that third way? What about that officer being incentivized to build those bridges that you're talking about? And how are we judging our commanding officers on how much have you embraced crisis management team or type teams? And we don't do that. If we're judging you by how many robbery collars you made or how well you did on a promotional exam. I say let's judge you a third track to promotion on how well you be a part of that new ecosystem of public safety. And that's why you need the right mayor to be in office one day that understands that.
So to that point, Borough President, I know you're gonna, but.
One of the young ladies wanted to speak.
Oh.
Tiffany, you wanted to say something?
So I was just, hi everyone, my name is Tiffany Lamella. I am the Deputy Director for GMAC Inc. We work out of the 67 precinct as well as the 8488 and PSA 3. So two things. I wanted to also piggyback to the conversation that Eric was doing in regards to jobs and funding for our participants. So I think it's also important to make sure that when we're speaking to jobs, we're not only doing it to the extent of having them on a regular 9 to 5, but allowing them to become who they really want to be, right? Teaching them how to take those funds and become entrepreneurships, right? And that part comes in when you are allotting the funds, is making sure who you are allocating the funds to and what those funds are being used, right? And to make sure that when you give those funds, there are not barriers around it that prevent our participants to be able to have accessibility. An example that he was saying was the SIP goals, right? Not only the SIP goals, but also understanding that the population that we're dealing with is high-risk participants. So they might be areas that they're supposed to go for jobs, but they can't walk through those areas because of what they have been through. So not only showing them how to work through that, but how to be able to use those funds in a way that is going to build them to become young entrepreneurships, right? So we had that conversation with the larger CMS population, with our council member at that time, and also with the mayor. So what we were able to do was get those funds from the larger organization that was put in place to man them, put it into the organization that is working directly with that population. And instead of us just working on getting them jobs, we built it out what was called an entrepreneurship training workshops. So we taught them how to become their own business owners based on what they found themselves wanting to do. Not what we wanted them to do, but where do you think you are going to flourish and how to utilize that? And we were able to have 2 ceremonies. Our first ceremony, we had it at Eric Adams' office, where 18 of our participants became their own business owners. We have 5 that now cater throughout the city, but they're happy, right? And specifically the 5 that we had were young girls that were inside of schools fighting all the time. That conversation is totally out, right? So not only did we uplift them, but we showed them that there was another way, and we gave them the funds to start that other way. Especially nowadays, if you tell a participant come in and work for $15 an hour, their mentality is I could be on the block and get 1,000, right? So how do I take that same $1,500 stipend that is given to the participant for that full 3 months or 4 month cycle that they're in, and say, okay, what do you want to do? What do you want to become? And this is what needs to start that process. So you're still going to get that stipend, but I'm not giving you that stipend for you to buy sneakers, this and that. I'm giving you to invest in your job or in what you want to become. So that was part of that. So I just wanted to piggyback. That is very important, making sure who we're giving the funds to, that they're not barriers to get that funding, and to make sure that we are allowing our kids to grow. In addition to the piece that you were talking about, the overheads and all the politics that we are encountering, is also making sure that when we're saying, okay, that we are giving XYZ amounts of funds to whether it's a CMS organization, whether it's a regular nonprofit, everything nowadays is reimbursement. So if they're going to be tied up in legalities and potentially not get funding for a full year, but the work is still being expected to do, how are you supporting them to be able to support the community, right? And I'm speaking to, because we are one of them. So we've been doing the work. We've been a year and a half without funding, but the work is still being done. We make sure, like with the 67 precinct, we are in direct communication with the Deputy Inspector Sullivan to make sure that that area is being saturated with everything that's doing, and that we are building the bridge between the community and between the NYPD. An example of that, 3 weeks ago, 67 precinct received a call in regards to a young boy that potentially had a gun in the house. There was interaction with the parents. They were scared that he was going to shoot. The mom was able to reach our outreach team. Our outreach worker had been working with the participant. He ran to the scene, spoke to the point person at the scene, and said, I've been working with this participant. Please allow me to make sure that the transition from that participant coming out, if there is a gun in fact, and you guys being able to detain him, runs seamlessly. We were able to do that. The police stepped back. They were able to allow my outreach worker to have that conversation with the participant. He came out, he was handcuffed, but there was trauma that was eliminated on both sides. Potentially a mother having to see her son shot, and trauma on the police department also, right? So just making sure that when we sing building the bridges and closing the gaps, that we are actually doing it for the population that is impacted.
Well said, well said, well said. Two observations, and I see you, Doctor. Good to see you over there. Two observations that I want to say. Number one, that's a great story that should be highlighted and show how we work together, because a lot of my law enforcement officials need to understand that this system works. And too many are held on to not believing this work. They look at crisis management folks, those are just glorified perps. And not understanding that everyone could, evolve and turn their lives around and become an asset. We need to change the mindset on both sides. Everybody talks about how much, people hate the police, but how much do police hate the people? Yeah. So there's a lot of healing that needs to go on. And having those operations help do that. Second, duplication of services. It's great to have a team that is in a hot spot working that area, but we should not have 20 teams doing that. There's a limited amount of resources. This is not like an endless flow of dollars that is coming in. And we can't continue to have an executive board, a chairman, a this, a that for every organization. We got to consolidate. Somehow we have to sit down and say, how do we come together as a team to work on this problem together? What I'm finding, the number of nonprofits I get that calls us just in the limited dollars we have in Borough Hall. We have every day a new nonprofit is calling me for the same problem over and over again. Hey, we can't have, they can't be a nonprofit, 20 nonprofits on the same block for the same problem. That's just not a reality. And then we can't say later, why can't I get any funding? Because there's 19 more of you, and there's not an endless flow of dollars. Anybody that tells you that it is, that's a lie. And so, if we have on Mother Gaston Boulevard a financial literacy, then all of the financial literacy nonprofits need to come together so we can operate as one. And that is one of the biggest impediments. We're watering down our resources. And lastly, city resources should be your resources. Like you said, you held an event at Borough Hall. You should be able to hold an event in every school that's in your area. You should be able to utilize the resources as a city to continue the operation that you're doing. You should not be separated from your taxpayers' resources to carry out the task that you're doing. When I hear my on-the-ground nonprofits not being able to get inside a school building to hold a youth seminar or to hold a workshop on healthy nutrition or to hold something on sex trafficking, we are saying you stay out and do what you have to do and you don't have city resources to do that. That's unacceptable. You know, all of these resources we have in the city, they belong to you to carry out the function that you need to carry out. And that is how we have to think about in this city, because you're partners to this ecosystem of raising healthy children and families.
17, which is all of this, all right? And now I'm a special advisor to the new president, a female president, for community engagement. When you go downstairs, you'll see a ticker tape going around the top of the building because we're into entrepreneurship here. It's part of the School of Business. People don't know, the story isn't told, that Medgar Evers College, because of our mission, we serve 30,000 people around the college. There are successful police programs that we work in the NYCHA housing, the Van Dyke Center with 4,000, and the police are our partners. What's happening is we don't communicate. What the borough president and the mayor, the same person, has told us all the time is our agencies fight against each other. We have 1,000 summer youth students on this campus. Money has come from all over, but agencies are fighting against each other. And one of the things when we first started working with the borough president, he said is the agencies don't need to fight against each other. We need to be one group working together. So the successful stories that we have in Brownsville, because we operate 6 NYCHA housing programs there for more than 20 years, all right? The beacon programs we have in about 7 schools here, all right, that have been operating for 25 years, people don't know about it. They don't realize until they look at the shirt that that's a Medgar Evers program. We're not just working on social service. We're not just working on nonviolence. We're working on a future for these young people. So why would a college be sponsoring all of this? Because it's more than just playing basketball. It's a lot more. So I think part of telling the success that we've had with the police, right, out in Brownsville and East New York is something that needs to happen, and a more frequent communication of all of us together. So thank you for letting me speak.
Thank you. You want to women to 1 and 2.
I mean, I agree with everyone in this room. Good afternoon. My name is Natasha Christopher. I am a mother whose son was murdered. I don't say lost. My son isn't lost. He was murdered. I'm listening to everything that everyone is sitting at this table saying, but no one is talking about the effects of gun violence that it has on the families, the painful effect, the traumas that we have to live with every single day. My son was murdered. And I mean, thank God I met Pastor Gale and he gave me assistance, and I know Eric, and I appreciate all the love and support I've gotten from you. But people fail to realize I have mothers in my group who have to walk out their door where their children was murdered. No one is thinking about what is going on with these families. My son is sitting in here, he's 40 now. He was 5 years old when his brother was murdered. And I had to work hard to get my mental health together so my son could be good, because they love to say that there is help, but I didn't see the help or didn't get the help. They love to say that there's things put in place for families that are affected by gun violence. I can bring you 20 women now who would tell you that is a lie. But thank God for the 67th Precinct Clergy, God Squad, and East Flatbush Village, who came together, made sure that my kids and my family had what we needed to keep on our table. School supplies, uniform, those things. Other mothers gave me help. So I want to know, everyone is always sitting here talking, yes, save the children, but nobody is talking about what is going on in those households. You have to save the parents also, not only the children. My son needs a job, but if you don't know what's going on with me, my son won't be good. So if you don't want to save me, how could you save my son? He has to live with me. I am angry of every day waking up to somebody dying from senseless gun violence. I am sick and tired of it. I should have never had to bury my child, and I don't want this for no other parent. But my thing is, yes, when you're having conversation about saving the youth, think about saving those families who are left behind to deal with this trauma. Thank you.
You're welcome.
NYPD for their bravery and the great work that they're doing. If you can join with me, put your hands together, just to say thank you to the NYPD. Thank you. As we discuss about the Labor Day issue, I'm so honored to see, the clergy and so many groups now are involved in the Labor Day. We have been doing a float on Labor Day for about 30 years out there, bringing the message about violence and change and hope. And it's a blessing to see that it's happening now. But there was an incident last night that rests on my heart, where when we got the call at the shooting on Church Avenue, and after we go over there, the inspector was giving us a little briefing of what happened, and then they said, "Reverend, please go and get the truck." So while I'm going to get the truck, and East 54, the guy's a man in the corner, and one of the guys said, "Reverend, please, go over there. The cop there, they're going into one of the store." So I said, "All right, let me go get the truck and I come back." So I go get the truck, I go over East 49 at the shooting. So when I come back around on East 54, the guys that were there, so 2 female officers were standing there, and the officer said, "Reverend, that guy over there was like, try to come over to us and, annoying us, antagonizing us." So then the guy, one of the young kids, so about 3 minutes after, the young guy come over across the street, and he said to me, "Reverend, could you tell these officers to leave the block, leave from the corner?" So I pulled the guy to the side. So I said, "What happened?" He said to me, "Reverend, I can't stand to see a cop because he witnessed what happened to Kiki." That was one of Kiki's friends. So then I listened to the guy, and he said that he's traumatized and he's hurting so bad. And I listened to him, so I was able to talk to him, and I get that guy, to go over and to say hello to the cop. And what I get from that also, those officers, they too were traumatized because they didn't have nothing to do with what happened back then, right? And I felt it for them so bad. So while we are also reaching out to other people, some of those new young officers out there, when people go to them in those manner and stimulate them, and they are paying the price for what others has done in the past, we also need to consider those officers. And also, I know the NYPD, they're doing the new exam coming up where they're recruiting. So if somebody can give some highlight on it, where the NYPD is hiring a lot of young people now, so this is a good opportunity for some of us. What I also, and I want to thank you, Mr. Eric Adams, for your support. What I realized too, a lot of us who have been on the ground for many years, all the politicians they give us, citation, proclamation, resolution, and some of us don't even have a wall to hang them on. And it's a reality. And then some of us, because we don't have the technical assistance to get into the resources, a lot of us, we only being called when when the battle get hot in the field, you know, and we have seen it. When these funding and the money is discussing, a lot of us, a lot of our groups, and people who are out there in the grassroots, who are really do the hands-on work, we never get a call to come to these meetings to see how can we get some of the help. So as you move into the direction, sir, and becoming our mayor, praise the Lord, we hope that you will look into some of these and to see really who's out there doing the hard work, right? And how can we get help? And Dr. Gil Monrose and Monique Waterman, God Squad, and all of these groups, I've seen you out there. We're all out there, and we're doing it together. And a lot of us, even this Sunday, we were doing a back-to-school books and not gun drive, and the city, they promised that they're going to give us some books, 200 books, and we get a call after with the vaccine, after I've been going around announcing on the truck, that we're getting books for the kids. And the city, they call us and said, oh, no, the books is only if the kids is going to get the vaccine, that they would get a book bag. And I'm saying, wow. And I can say, not even the P from the pencil I didn't get from the city. So they canceled, and I thank you, Inspector, for sending us some book bag. And God Squad, Pastor Gilman Rose, they sent us a few things. And we have close to 200 kids, but the city didn't give us, the book bag for the kids because we may not want the kids to take the vaccine. So a lot of us, so thank you.
Thank you.
And we're
Thank
here.
you. Did you get the book bags, by the way?
Sorry?
Did you get the book bags?
I got some from the NYPD.
Okay.
And I get
good, excellent,
and
excellent.
some from Pastor Monrose.
Okay, sister, you want to say something?
Yes. Good morning, everyone. I'm Samantha Bernadine. I'm with Juvencity International, as well as with the Flatbush African Burial Ground Project. I echo everything that has been said. And Dr. Castro actually had said something that I was exactly going to say. As a former social worker and currently a New York City high school teacher, going back to my days as a social worker, agencies do not talk to each other. Therefore, there is a duplication in services, as you said. There is a lack of resources because agencies are fighting or they are putting limitations on what people can do. And if we are going to be proactive and not reactive to what the Reverend had said, we have to reimagine, and I love the fact that we are using that terminology. Communities cannot thrive when there is a shortage, period, where there is limitations, period. And in many communities, there is a lacking of services. I'm happy to hear that there are organizations that are giving wraparound services. A child and a family cannot thrive when they have to borrow and steal to help or satisfy one need when the other need is also important but cannot. If we are going to answer the question that you started off with of what are we doing wrong, we are all doing something wrong. And in order for us to do something right and to highlight the right things that we are doing, this needs to be consistent. This has to be a everyday, boots on the ground, everyone talking to each other, and not feeling that because you hold a certain position and you have a corner office that you have no time to talk to the people who have their feet in the mud and doing the work. If we are going to continue to, and in light of what this meeting is about, and highlighting the culture, especially of the Caribbean and the African diaspora, it all has to be where everyone is at the table. No one, I know for myself as a teacher, recently, during the pandemic, I lost 5 students to gun violence. And in my head, I'm at home teaching, and how can I teach when I lost a student? How can my students, who may not know that student, they're part of a school community, a school family. So even to echo Sister here's pain from the families, even our school community needs that. And having a bereavement person come in to talk for a couple of days, or if we can get them, that's not going to work if we're also focusing on other things. So to go back to your question as to what could we do better? And I think that's what we should say. What could we do better? What are those barriers? And let's hold everyone accountable. We're talking about taxpayers' dollars, absolutely. But every single commissioner needs to be here, and not just be here because they have to punch in, but they have to be here and be present and be willing to understand, as well as say, you know what, I made a mistake. What could I do to do better? That's the only way that we can thrive in here. Other than that, we can't. And to go back to the African burial ground, one of the key things to why sometimes we have students, young people getting involved in gangs is because they don't know their culture, or their culture is being stigmatized as this. If we are in a building teaching students to be the best that they can be, financial literacy, don't pick up a gun, do this, be a doctor, here's this internship, but next door, their ancestors are being desecrated, I am not doing my job. I'm being a hypocrite because a system that I am part of is saying that you don't matter. So we hope, soon to be mayor, that we have a conversation and that all of us here hold you and everyone else accountable as you will hold us accountable. Because we cannot do this separately. It has to be a joint effort. Going back to the African proverb, it takes a village to raise a child. It takes a village to raise a community as well. I thank you.
Thank you, thank you. Thank you. So we want to be respectful for your time, and this is one of many. This is not just Juve. Right. This is, how do we start to rebuild those bridges and start listening to each other and start collaborating together. So, all of you who are around this table, thank you so much for taking the time out, and we want to really be respectful of your time. I want to thank our uniform personnel that's here. Chief, thank you so much for being here, and many of your community affairs officers who are here. Roxanne as well, who has been around with us for so long, and Chief Madry, who came out, Chief of Community Affairs, to speak with us as well. So again, thank you so much for taking the time out. Let's continue this conversation and dialogue.
Thank you so much.